Morgan Heinrich has built her career helping leaders and organizations turn visibility into business growth. As Director of Growth Marketing at Guild Mortgage, she leads strategy across recruiting, retention, executive visibility, and marketing initiatives that help the company connect with the people it wants to reach and the professionals it wants to attract. Morgan understands something a lot of companies are still catching up to. People do business with people they trust. That means marketing is no longer about campaigns, content, or polished messaging. It's about helping leaders show up with clarity, credibility, and consistency. In this conversation, we're talking about one of my favorite topics: personal branding, leadership visibility, recruiting, marketing, and what it takes to stand out in a crowded industry without sounding like everyone else. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, Chrissy.
I am so excited. Like I said in the intro, this is one of my favorite topics because I've been screaming it from, well, not the mountaintops. I'd be on bigger stages if I was doing that. But so on little bitty hills, I've been screaming it, that personal brands are important for people, even inside organizations. So that's where you shine as well. How did you get companies to start realizing, oh gosh, our employees need to have their own brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like in this digital AI age, people are craving authenticity. People want to know the true people behind the computers, behind the AI chatbots, behind the chat GPT, behind the screen. And it's so important in today's day and age to be able to know the people that you're working for and being attracted to it. I mean, companies are built by these leaders and they're shaped by these leaders. And it's so important to have a presence, to know the people that you're working with. I work in the mortgage industry, and that is one of the biggest purchases and decisions you'll make in your entire life. You know how important it
Yeah.
is to trust and know and like the people that you're working with?
Yeah, it's so funny because anyone who's gone to marketing or network events, networking and whatnot, has heard the know, like, and trust thing. But I don't think people really understood the trust part of it for companies. And you're so right. Like a mortgage company, a lot of people would, they can't wrap their minds around the trust aspect there. They just think, oh, it's a big brand. They must be fine. Which, it's not always the case.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a great point though with the networking piece. So my career started primarily with networking. So my first year, I got hired on as a marketing specialist in the interior design industry. And I went to 300 networking events in 365 days. I was, oh yeah, yeah. Breakfast, lunch, happy hour, dinner, after parties. I was exhausted, but I think I was 22 years old and just wanted to learn every single industry. I wanted to connect with people, and people are craving that. They're absolutely craving that sense of connection. They want to know the people that they're working with. And in mortgage, how it translates now to where I am, where I've been building my career for the last 5 years, is you are going to be so vulnerable with that person, especially buying a house. Like you are going to know
Yeah.
your finances. I mean, it's here, look behind the curtain over here, that none of my friends' family know, but here's my financials. You need to be honest with that person because it's your
Yeah.
life and your future that you're building.
Oh, that's such a great point. You're right. Because, yeah, a lot of people, you have to like lay it all out for the mortgage company and for the lender. Otherwise, they can't help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I bought my house when I was 23 years old. I'm originally from upstate New York, bought a house down here in Texas. And it was, I mean, it's a scary process. You don't know anything. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. I mean, the first thing I did was probably look up on Zillow. Wrong. You actually find a loan officer first because I went to TCU on a scholarship and I paid off my student loans in cash. So therefore, I had no credit. And I had to work with a loan officer for 6 months to actually build up my credit. I had to be really honest and transparent about what my life looked like. And ended up buying a house at 23 years old. And so it's
That's
so
amazing.
important, that relationship.
That's awesome. Wow. Kudos. Yeah. And you're right. When you don't have any credit, but you don't have any debt, it kind of works against you too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's things, I mean, I'm 30 years old now, and my friends are going through different phases in their lives where they're all buying houses now. They're getting married. I get married in September, but now they're buying homes. and they don't even know where to look. And I'm like, I work in this industry. I'm educating people every single day. And we assume people know what that process looks like, and they don't. And my friends that don't have credit cards, I'm like, it's time to reassess that and
Yeah.
build up that credit.
Yeah. Honestly, and I know this has nothing to do with branding, but you're so right. Because I know that when my husband and I got married, that was our goal. No debt, no debt. I mean, we had the mortgage, but other than that, we are like, no debt. So we paid everything cash all the time.
Yeah.
And then when it came to actually needing credit for something, we were like, oh man, they said, oh, you're actually a ghost. You're not even in the system,
Wow.
which was awful.
Oh,
So yeah, good point. Good point. And when it comes to establishing that trust, you mentioned the authenticity and the AI and all of that. Um, it made me think, I was actually thinking about this morning. This girl sent me an Instagram voice message, and I was like, we're going to see more of that, because now I can tell she's a real human.
yeah.
It's got the ums in there. I could hear her walking her dog. It's a real person.
Yeah.
And so that authenticity is something we are really craving right now.
We're craving it. And even marketing alone. And I think I heard it on another one of your podcasts. People love handwritten notes. People love a handwritten thank you card. And it's like we are craving this sense of authenticity. And it's almost like when something's too perfect, something goes off in our brains that this isn't real. And we crave that, the little scribble out on that thank you card with, the Starbucks gift card for a referral. So we're truly craving that. I actually was on a demo for an AI video editor, and fascinating. And people love speed. So it's a tool we were looking at, and people love speed. So it was fully edited within seconds. Sounds great. Do you want to guess the next step that they were talking about going into with AI?
Is it the voice?
Avatars. So you're like taking your likeness, and now instead of you even having to film a video, it's a fully generated AI avatar. And my stomach dropped. I've traveled around the country talking to real estate professionals, business owners about the importance of being on video and being yourself. And now we're just going to completely replace that with an AI avatar. It broke my heart a little bit. And the other thing is we're nosy, like what you're saying with listening about walking the dog. We as people are nosy. We want to see what's going on behind the scenes. I've got 3 dogs. I like to walk around my neighborhood. We are nosy. We want to see what's going on. And those connections, like the dogs being parents, that's why we like people. Outside of their business online, we like people because they're a mom, because they're a little league coach, because they like to paint in their free time. That's the authenticity that AI can't replace.
So, you bring up an awesome point. You made me think of two things there. So I have seen some pretty spectacular avatars. I mean, I do have a friend who creates those, and he sent me one of me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's like really good.
Yeah.
But for my industry specifically, I pride myself on the authenticity, and that's really part of my brand. So for me to use an AI video, it just isn't in alignment with my
Right.
values.
Yeah.
But are there instances? Sure, there could be when somebody else's brand that might work for, or maybe there's nobody who really wants to be the face of the company. I don't know, but and then you made me think too, back to like, who is this person, and how do we connect? Well, I have started engaging with the Helen, the one who runs Brownies.
Yeah.
And you may not have to use Brownies yet, but I'm almost 50, so I gotta use the Brownies. And I remember I sent a message to Frowny's Instagram because I was struggling to figure out exactly how to put them on. I got a voice memo in my DMs from Helen. And again, I could tell by all the background noise that it was actually a real person.
Wow.
And she specifically answered my questions. And I was like, holy crap. Helen, the top of Frownies, just sent me a DM answering my question. What? And since then, we've actually engaged multiple times on Instagram, and like I know where she's looking to move. Like I know she's Texan, so of course we bonded over that. Like,
Great.
but she was just being a real person with me as
Yeah.
well, and that's just so insane. I mean, I'm like, well, yeah, no, of course I'm going to keep buying Brownies.
Well, and that's exactly my point. You just made it. The fact that you're sharing this story, live on a podcast that's exactly my point. We're not going to have stories like that when the experience goes, perfectly seamlessly. If it was just, an AI generated message that came back, would you be telling people about it? No.
Nope.
No. And then to your first point, so I have seen with the AI avatars, what I do think is interesting is what if you didn't have a face of the company, but someone you actively called, I don't know, we can call them Teddy. And that person is your AI avatar for your company. Then I think that makes sense. But when it's replacing the human being, when it's replacing Morgan, when it's replacing Chrissy, there's something in our minds that tells us we're almost being deceived. So that's the part where my stomach kind of drops is I want people to know me. I want people to see my hair is out of place or my earrings are turquoise. Like I want people to know me for who I am. I want people to know I'm 6 feet tall. Like there's things like that it's the AI avatars just can't duplicate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I forgot you were that tall.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, we know each other in person. We're both Texans and we've met before. So yeah, I remember you at the very beginning of your career and we were talking about social media. And if I remember correctly, I remember telling you you needed to charge more.
Yes. 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 Thank you for that advice.
So yeah, I know. I feel like sometimes I need to take my own advice on that, but it's one of the things I'm working on with my coach. So
Well, okay, so to that point, it's what value do you bring? What value do you bring? And obviously, I've grown in my career. I've gone from very, very small companies to one of the top 5 mortgage companies in the country now. And so it's like bringing that value, bringing that authenticity, bringing your jokes, your stuttering, like bringing every piece of you, bringing your experience. Like AI is not going to replace that, and it's only gonna make us better. It's only going to push us faster. And something that I had heard you say is, with branding, there's so much of that personality that we need to inject. Like there is so much of that personality, the colors, the life that we see that we're inspired by, the thoughts we have in the middle of the night for a name of a campaign that we're immediately like, oh, you know what? That fits. It can't be replaced by that.
no, 100%. And, we use AI. I am not anti AI. We use it for a lot of things. Like it'll help with editing this podcast. We use it for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the actual like spice of the brand and the voice, it can't be replaced. And I've tried. Like I tested it out to see, like I gave it our exact framework, follow these rules. I got very specific. Nope, still didn't do it. And I would have to constantly, nope, that's not right. Or no, that's not what would work at all,
Yeah.
and I see some of our clients or people who are just like, hey, would you look at this? They'll send me stuff. And I'm like, no, this was AI, wasn't
We can tell. We can tell. And so to pivot a little bit, let's talk about executive presence because I've seen a lot of companies and leaders post things on social media that are literally a chat GPT, a Claude campaign that they came up with that has no personality whatsoever. It's like, let's talk about mergers and acquisitions for 12 weeks, give me a campaign, and that's it. Where actually, what gets the most engagement are those personal real life experiences. I posted the other day on LinkedIn, I was sending out wedding invitations and I was asking other marketers if they, are they super creative with their wedding or are they not? And that post got so many messages, direct messages from people within the industry that were like, oh my gosh, I have the best advice for you. And so things like that is seeing behind the curtain. It's talking about true life experiences. And that's why people want to work with these executives. One of the quotes that I've heard years ago was when you are not on social media, when you're not active, like you're taking away from the world. Like there's a reason there's a Chrissy, there's a reason there's a Morgan. You're taking away and you're being selfish by holding it to yourself. Where if you can pour into others on social, if you could share your message, you don't know who you're going to touch. And you'll be shocked by the amount of people that you do.
100%. And that is something that I learned the hard way. When the girls went viral 17 years ago and they were on TV and all these papers, I really hid behind them and orchestrated behind the scenes. I built their brands.
Yeah.
And, I did their campaigns, but I didn't want to be loud enough. I didn't feel confident I was talking about personal branding 17 plus years ago, but like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't shouting it from the rooftops.
Yep.
Everyone in my circle knew that that's what I did, but nobody outside of the circle. So I had, really big authority visibility gap, which is what happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're super knowledgeable, especially these executives, super knowledgeable. Everybody in the company knows they're amazing, but kind of stops there. And so I love that you're bringing that up with, you know, put your personality out there, put that goofiness. I've seen a lot of people, let's let LinkedIn be weird. I'm like, okay, I'm down for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's when you post the imperfections, that's how people bond with you. And, I've been going through this transition in my life where I was really intentional about where I came next. So I just started at Guild last Monday. So relatively new to the company, but I was super intentional with where I wanted to go. And one of the biggest questions I asked was about the leaders. I couldn't find very much about them on social media yet,
Ah,
but every single person that I talked to, Guild has an incredible reputation. And it was speaking to the leaders and the leadership and the people and their hearts behind the scenes. And so I think there's a fear in that. It's like, we don't want to brag on social media. We want to be humble on social media. So it's being intentional, but it's being personal, because if you are too perfect on social media, it's going to turn people off. No one wants to work with a fully perfect person. Somebody wants to see, the little, I don't know, the little dent in organ. And they're like, oh, here's where we bond. Here's where the human shines through.
yeah, I love that. And I use this example all the time. I always say, take two companies that are same level of expertise, same amount of, everything is the same. But this one over here has everyone personally branded and everyone's an expert in their field and it's well known, versus this one that nobody knows if they're actually experts. Who are you going to pick?
Yeah. Social proof. That's the concept of social proof. I mean, I talk about it all the time. And actually, this is still great on point with this is, so you've heard the concept of social proof.
Of course.
And for the listeners, those who haven't, so my dad, love my dad. He's been in chimney sweep for 40 something years. He hasn't advertised in 30 years. He cleans Miranda Lambert's chimney. I love Fred. They leave a key under the doormat. My dad was in the military. Love him. He's got, great perspective. He's a great guy. And he says, hey, Morgan, there's a great restaurant, best restaurant I've ever been to. I want you to try it. What's the first thing I'm going to do?
You went and Googled it.
I went and Googled it. I'm going to go and look it up. Okay. So say if I see online, so I can't find their website. Okay. Dig number one, I'm from a small town. So I was like, okay, maybe, they have a Facebook page where they post the menus. We've all seen these. So I click on the Facebook page and I see they haven't posted 6 months, a year, 2 years. I'm going to assume they went out of business. All those things in our mind. Say if we look at the reviews and their reviews are aligning with my dad, who I know, love, and trust, high recommendation. What I'm seeing online, if it doesn't match up, I go to their Instagram. They haven't posted in years. They haven't posted in months. I start doing my research. Now these days, you go to Chat GPT. You ask Chat, like, if what you're seeing online is not aligning with what's coming from the person. I talk to loan officers every single day. Are they going to use you to buy the house? So that's the question. That's how it translates to executives. People are going to look you up, and what we want to show up online is going to match the recommendation that came from that person.
100%. And, yes, we look everyone up no matter what. Well, I've heard on some of these second date updates that the people don't Google and search people before dates, which I'm like, what? But, yeah, you're right. We are going to all Google, and you're right too about the matching up. Everything has to match. And, now with AI tools, they're actually starting to, there's a new software and the name is escaping me right now, but it's essentially a FICO score for your brand.
Whoa.
And it goes and tells you, this is out of alignment with what you say you do, but yet this is posted here. And so it's coming fast, where we better get it all on track.
Yeah. And for those listening, I recommend looking yourself up, going on ChatGPT and typing in your name and seeing what you can find. We all Googled ourselves, 10, 15 years ago and saw what we were showing up on Google. But now this is the future. Look up your company.
Yeah.
And I have everyone do this. Ask, I work with loan officers. So I tell them, hey, who's the best loan officer in Fort Worth, Texas? And see who comes up. Do the same thing for your business. And if it's not aligning with what's showing up there, it's time to do an audit and fully reassess what you're putting out.
Yeah, 100%. And, I hear this from executives specifically like, oh, we have a lot of regulations around what we can say, or I'm too embarrassed, or what if I do something and I get judged for it? And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, one, there's probably guidelines somewhere that you can follow that you just need to have in your hands.
Yeah.
But what else would you say to them?
I hear the embarrassment question all the time. I do. And, to work with execs and us as women, we're vain. We're like, we got that wrinkle going in our forehead. I don't look perfect today. You show up to those coffee meetings. You show up in person every single day. You show up for your people and they still love you. So it's, why are we holding ourselves back online? And for every person who doesn't get online and who's making up excuses not to, guess what? Your competition is. And over the next 10, 5, 10, 15, 2 years, you're going to get replaced by the people that are actually showing up. So it's time to swallow your pride. Ego's the enemy. We hear that all the time. Ego's the enemy. Swallow your pride and show up there.
Yeah. One thing that I have had to shift my mindset around to avoid that perfection, mentality is to go for elegance, not perfection. Because I want to be elegant or graceful, elegant, but not perfect.
Yeah.
Because I got stuck in that. That's what I was afraid of, was being judged on camera, or, oh my gosh, my roots are a little bad, or, oh, I got a gray,
Yeah.
It's like, well, what would you do in real life if you showed up that way?
But it makes you human. It makes you human. You don't sit outside in your car and you don't not show up to the coffee meeting because you got, your roots that need to be done. You still show up. You show up as you, and people love you for it. And the other thing that I tell people is your first few posts are really only going to be seen by the people within your circle, what I call your super fans. So hopefully that gives you some confidence that the people that are already looking at you, that are loving on you, those are going to be the first people in your circle. And then you get to practice a little bit too. So if you are new to it, if you're new to getting on video, if you're new to getting on social media, video especially, send a video. Send a video to your circle. Just try it out. Send it. My biggest piece of advice, Chrissy, you know this one, don't watch it back. I went to school for broadcast journalism. And my biggest piece of advice is do not watch it back, because we will continue to rip ourselves apart. No one else is saying, oh, your voice doesn't sound like that. We're our own biggest critics, and we have to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah. It's funny because I'll watch, in the past, I used to watch the segments that would come out about us. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I look so fat there, or whatever. And yet, if I looked in the comments, not one person said, oh my gosh, she looks so fat.
Well,
Not one. But I was just self-conscious on about myself. But, and, another thing too, like when we start people out on, let's say, podcasts, and they've never been on podcasts before, we start them on small ones, real small. So that way they can test it out, see how. A lot of times I'll even have them on my podcast if they've never been on one, just so I can do a practice round with them.
Yeah.
But you just have to start, and it's going to be messy the first time. It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, we're all learning, and we're all human. And again, circle back to our AI point. AI is perfect, and we know in our brains that something is wrong with it. And for those of you who have been scrolling on TikTok and you're like, there's something wrong with that. That's itching my brain funny. You can tell it's almost too perfect. Again, push through that. Like when you're on video, you're going to make the mistake. You're going to stumble over that word, but push through it, because that's the authenticity that's coming through.
But just like the intro to this podcast episode, it was not perfect. But you know what? I didn't stop and go, oh, let's start again. It needs to be perfect, because it doesn't need to be perfect. That little mess up is not going to make anybody go, oh my God, I'm not listening to this episode. She misspoke one word. It's over.
No,
nobody's going to do that.
And if they do, that's not the audience that you're speaking to.
Yeah. 100%. Oh my gosh. I love that you brought up that point, because I feel like sometimes people feel like they have to get everything perfect and all the words have to be 100% perfect. And yes, we want to be intentional. So don't mistake me on that. But, I tell people all the time, the right message should attract who you want and repel who you don't want.
Absolutely. 100%.
So I know you work with lenders a lot, and they engage with the consumer mostly. In the past, I believe, if I remember correctly, you've done B2B as well. And what I like to point out is that it's actually still human to human, even if it's B2B. And
Yeah.
I want you to expand on that.
Yeah. So I started my career, very, very interesting career. So I started out in the biotech industry, and then I went into the luxury interior design industry, where I actually worked for a high-end moving company, and all of our clients were luxury interior designers. So very much B2B. And then I went over into the space of affinity programs. So we worked with Office Depot, and essentially we did affinity programs and partnerships with small businesses. That human relationship is so important. It is so important. Networking is key there. Relationships are key there. And now in the role that I'm in, it's mostly B2B, because loan officers work a lot of times with real estate agents. So it's a lot of B2B transactions where people want to know the person behind the account. Piece of advice, depending on your viewpoints on this, is your social media profile picture. If you are engaging on your own platform, it should be a picture of you, and I should be able to see your eyeballs. Not, it shouldn't be a logo unless it's a big brand page, but people want to engage with other human beings. That's how decisions get made, and it's eventually those relationships behind the scenes that's where the relationships happen. That is so important, and I mean, throughout my entire career, it's truly building that trust and being authentic. And how else are people going to find you if you're not on social media these days?
Right. Well, and one of the points I like to bring up is if you've done a great job with your social presence and on your website, and any PR that you're, getting, it's pre-selling for you. So your conversion rates should improve
Yeah.
because half of the work is already done. When they get on the call with you, they've got a good sense already as to whether or not they're actually going to work with you. And it might just be, let's hash out the details or just make sure. Um, it does half of the work for you.
Yeah. Oh, and that is so true. And again, back to that social group proof concept, people are going to look you up before they even engage with you. They are going to look you up and try to find everything they can about you online. And so, whenever you do meet with people in person, via Zoom, face to face, you have that personal relationship of, oh, we're both parents. Oh, we're both, we love our dogs. Like that personality, like alignment is so important in decision making. And for business owners to be out there and truly show up. I mean, Chrissy was using the example with frownies. Like that is so cool to see behind the curtain and truly know that there's a human being you're working with.
Well, and now they just got free advertising
They did.
because here we are talking about them.
You're like stop them later.
I know. Hey, Helen. But I know I have a running joke that my 90s Tetris skills come in handy when trying to put my frownies on.
My
So I'm probably going to post that at some point, but I'm trying to figure out the right way to post it. But yeah, I feel like I'm playing Tetris every time I put this on. So, um, let's see. Whenever you start out so like you're brand new in Guild, what was the first thing you did to get, I know you said earlier they weren't yet on social media. So what's the first thing you did when you got there?
I'm listening. So currently going through a listening tour. I believe it is so important to sit back and listen what people are telling you over and over. So right now I'm finishing up week 2, and I am truly on this listening and discovery tour. I'm taking a ton of notes, and every meeting that I have, I'm connecting with a ton of other people in different pieces of the business. And what I actually start with, instead of how long you been here for? I'm asking them, what's your favorite childhood memory? And the reason is because you work with the people that you work with, you're with them most of the day, every day. I want to know who you are behind the scenes. I want to get to know you. I plan on being here for a very long time, and I want to get to know the person behind the job title. Same thing with social media. We want to get to know the person behind the pretty polished profile picture. So I've been very intentional about building those relationships as a platform, because as long as the relationship and the foundation is solid, we're on the same team, we're rowing together, then we can really accomplish anything together. Instead of me coming and, barging in with all these ideas, which I do. I have a lot of ideas and they know that. But it's really about listening first, taking notes. And next week, I'm going to start formulating an action plan. And it is to get them on
Awesome.
social media. They know.
Well, I love that you said that you start by listening because so many people skip that. They
Mhm.
go in and they just start with best practices for overall, and here's my formula, whatever. It's like, okay, well, does that actually work for this brand?
Yeah.
We had a company recently that we had to do the architecture for. Really, they didn't have the architecture in place. And so literally we went and talked to each of their locations, like how would you describe the brand? And, what are your values? What do you think the company's values are? And it was really eye opening to see that nobody was saying the same thing.
Wow.
And it's like, well, therein lies your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you handle it from there? What was your next step?
That's a great question. So what I did was I met with the founders and I said, here's the disconnect between everyone. And now I need to know where you want it to actually fall. And, really kind of letting them know, like, you're the founders. So you get to decide what are the values that you want your company to stand behind. And it was a long process, which I definitely underestimated how long it was going to take
Yeah.
to do all that. But you just have to do it. If you don't do that hard, deep dive into what people actually think of the brand or what they want to say about the brand, you're going to go off in the wrong direction and end up having to do that work all over again anyway. So yeah, you have to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love.
I am a big building a story brand, Donald Miller girl. Every single time I start a new role, venture into a new area, I actually reread the book over and over. Back when I was doing one-on-one consultations, I would make it mandatory that people had to finish the book just because that messaging is so important. And I mean, this is what you and I deal in every single day, but it's so important. You confuse, you lose. And if you're confused about what you're offering, your clients aren't going to know what you're offering, what your message is. And that's why I've been sitting here and just receiving so I can understand where we're going and then formulate a message and a strategy to carry that forward. What we're seeing a lot, especially with AI and the speed that it brings, is people are jumping so far in. And, you know, you've heard the example that you can message AI, oh, I did something horrible. And it's going to be like, oh, they probably deserved it. Like AI is going to be the ultimate hype man, unfortunately, where you need to be able to know your strategy and stick through it. You need to be able to listen to what your customer wants because ultimately that's the goal. The goal is that we solve our customer's problem, not to push through and say it's me all the time. Like no brand is going to get anywhere with that messaging.
Yeah, I know. I love Donald. I don't know if you know that I actually got to get trained by Donald. I got
Wow.
certified back in 2019 from him. And so, yeah, I'm a huge story brand fan. And we've taken our own kind of spin on things. I bring a little bit more psychology into it now, but you brought up the point of not making it about you. And, I was looking at speaker's one sheet today, and I noticed the title of the speech was kind of what it was about. And I said, it can't be about what it's about. What's the transformation? And it's
Oh, I
just,
love
I
that. I love that.
like,
So again,
that's what people care.
yeah,
That's what they care about.
yeah. People want to know what do I get out of it? What are you doing for me? What is this company doing for me? And you should be able to answer it.
Yeah, exactly. Which goes back to what you were saying earlier about the value you bring. You should be able to know the transformation you bring as a brand or as an employee and be able to translate that. And that'll help you get a raise when you go to ask for it.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
how do you tell your story? And back to executive presence. And there was something else that you had touched on earlier. So being in the role where I've been helping all these executives get on social media, all these brands get on social media, get active, tell their story. I will be honest that I ran into a rut where I wasn't telling mine. And it was very much,
same.
yeah, yeah. And it's because we're thinking about them, where we need to tell our own stories because we're a witness to all these incredible stories. And over the past 7 weeks of me journeying and interviewing companies all over the country, I've been flying coast to coast, interviewing executives, companies, trying to figure out where I wanted to plant myself and to continue to build and grow. And I have been so like humble and vulnerable on social media, but that opened up a flood of phone calls. I probably had 150 plus phone calls from executives because they saw my social media presence on LinkedIn. And so there's so much power in that and telling your story. And again, back to those who do not know where to start, come at it with, the thought that you're going to enrich other lives. You are going to provide value to others. If you come at it like, oh, it's time to put the spotlight fully on me, it's going to turn a lot of people off. Or think about where you can provide value to others and it'll come back tenfold.
Yeah. And, not being afraid to be vulnerable. And that doesn't mean you have to air your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people don't realize that that's not what it means.
Yeah.
But like I think it was a couple weeks ago, I posted something where I took kind of a line on something. I wasn't in a position where I really wanted to get pulled into any kind of debate or anything. So
Yeah.
I did tread it a little bit lightly because I just don't have capacity for the debate right now.
Yeah.
But I did have some vulnerability in it. I got so many DMs and I had new friend requests from people and other people who were like, oh my gosh, yes, you said what I've been trying to say.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that works.
Yeah. Yeah. And how powerful is that? Like, what a powerful message.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're working with these executives and you're trying to help them on social media, what's the first thing you're going to have these people do since they've never been on social media?
I want to hear their story. So ultimately, again, broadcast journalism background, I sit there and I listen to them and I'll ask them personal questions. And again, if you are going through this, you could do it yourself. You could have ChatGPT interview you. But I want to hear your full story. I want to hear, where did you grow up? How did you get into this? What do you care about? What do you do when you're not clocked in? I mean, feel like most of us are clocked in all the time. But what do you do for fun? And then I figure out, okay, where does our strategy lie? Because we do. I am all for posting, but if there's no strategy behind it, if you want to grow, if you want to educate, if you want to be intentional with it, AI is a great tool for that. But you need to be really honest with yourself about where you're going with it. And just like what I did for myself through this journey was I was able to tell the story of looking behind the curtains on all these huge companies in this industry and what that felt like, the motivation that I was hearing behind it. I got to do a whole thank you tour. So it's, who are you? What characters are you going to bring along with you in your story? How can you shout out others? How can you pour into others? So the executive that is afraid to get on social media right now, start writing it down. If you don't have anybody in your circle to interview you, start writing it down and kind of, take it away. A little piece of advice that I've given lately is AI, ChatGPT, great tool, but actually instead of typing it out, do a voice note within ChatGPT or AI, whatever AI tool you're using, and start talking and ask yourself, where do I want to go with this? What does my story look like? Because once you're talking, you'll start actually going off into a different direction than if we were typing, because we like to correct ourselves there.
Yep, 100%. This is one of my ways of getting our authors or the people that we're doing publicity for to not give us AI content is I'll tell them, I need a voice memo from you answering this journalist's query. That way I can translate it or transcribe it, clean it up, and I'll send it to her. And that way it's authentic and she's likely to use it, because if it's AI, she's not going to use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I had this morning, even that one sheet that I was going over, instead of typing up notes or throwing it into Claude or ChatGPT and having it write out my notes, I hopped on a Zoom. I couldn't get my Loom to work. So I hopped on a Zoom, just did screen record, and I just talked through line by line on the sheet, and then, really went into explaining, here's why I'm saying this.
Yeah.
And, again, going off on the tangents, like you said. So she knows I didn't just take that and spit it into my AI tool and let it do it. No, it was actually me.
Yeah. Yeah. And another piece of tidbit with that from there, how personal can you get on social media without, getting too airing your dirty laundry? How personal can you get? What are you willing to share and showcase? how can you share who you are authentically behind the scenes? If you draw a line at you don't want your kids' faces, then okay, draw that line. But if you do want to share what it is being a parent or a working mom or whatever story you can tell, be really intentional with that and figure out, how far am I willing to go with it? Because there is a connection points that people are going to make with you to be able to see behind that curtain. Because as people and human beings, we are nosy. We like to know who you are behind the scenes.
100%. And I guess I'm very blessed that we did get thrown onto TV because that's something we learned how to do was craft the intentional story that we wanted to show where there was some vulnerability, but we also controlled the narrative. And, most people know that Sienna, she has several diagnoses. And so there were a lot of special requirements as she was growing up. And many times there would be a producer that would try and turn it into a sad thing or try and focus on the negative side of it. And I always pushed back and said, that's not the narrative. We do not live in a victim mindset. And so I do not want that to be the narrative.
Yeah.
And so the power of knowing your story and what you want to tell gives you that control. Because had I not already thought that out, they probably could have railroaded me and just taken advantage. Producers are good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you had, right at the battle line training where it was like you knew the line you weren't willing to cross.
Yeah, I remember in an interview and the lady said, "Can I ask you about this?" And I just said, "Nope."
No
And I
is a
just sat
complete
there.
sentence. No is
Yeah,
a complete sentence.
I just said no. And I did not expand. My face didn't change. And she was like, "I guess we're not going to talk about that." Because I
Yeah.
had already told them I wasn't talking about it. And so she decided to bring it up on camera. And so I was like, "You're not going to make me feel obligated because we're on camera now."
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Chrissy, I have a question for you. Is there any topics or advice you have for people on things that they should not get into?
Yes. So we actually are dealing with a situation right now, and I'm trying to explain to the person there is a controversy around something they're participating in, but they have zero to do with that controversy, and they want to actually address it. And I'm saying, don't address it because it's not your controversy. And if you do address it, you're going to pull yourself into the controversy. And that's what the journalist is going to hook onto, not the rest of your story.
Yeah.
And your story is awesome. And so I always say, like for me, I never post anything political because that's not my lane. I don't do branding for politicians.
Yeah.
That's not my lane. I don't get jazzed about politics, one side or the other. So I just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
If there's a subject that I don't really know, I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my advice is, know the things that you are going to talk about and then don't talk about anything else. We always like to tell people, get your 3 to 5 buckets. Like what are your core pillars, your themes? That's what you talk about. Nothing else. That's what you talk about.
Yeah.
So if yours isn't in those, don't talk about it.
I completely agree with that. And that's why that's the story brand, and you guys go further with it. But those buckets are so important. And it's figuring out, again, your story, where you can go to the start. You know your parameters, you know how far you're willing to go, you know where your boundaries are. But figuring out those buckets make it so much easier when you are ready to tell that story. And so staying within your lane and not going off in a different direction is so important. And it also helps with longevity too. Because what I've seen is a lot of people get very excited. They start posting 5 times a day and then they're burnt out really fast.
Yeah. And it helps with AI. Like if you're repeatedly saying the same phrase over and over again, and AI has somebody searching for that phrase and you've said it 700 times, it's likely going to at least check you out to see if it wants to recommend you.
Yeah.
So, and I have a lot of people who come and they're like, well, I don't know what my 3 to 5 buckets are. So one of the things I ask them is, what are you constantly being asked? Like, what advice are you always giving to people? What questions do people consistently over and over ask you? And that's an easy way to start, because if you really start paying attention to the questions people ask you, you're like, oh yeah, that's my thing.
A note and a piece of advice for that is actually open up a note on your notes app and start a running list, because we give that advice over and over, is write down the questions you're being asked. But people, they just say they clock it in their heads, where actually if you write it down, it's going to very much check you, and you're going to visually be like, oh my gosh, this is the fifth time I've been asked this week. So it makes it easier when the questions are written down. And the other piece that you can flip it into, not just the content buckets, each question's a video. And so, how cool is that, that whenever you start creating video and content around it, that it goes out every single time. Another little tidbit is, whenever you are ready to get on to video, one of the first pieces of content that I do recommend that people do is, who are you? What's your story? What's your background? People always want to know that. And whenever you're excited about, getting on social media, getting on video, putting yourself out there, share your story and make that a piece of content. And you could actually pin it on the top of your feed on Instagram, and on a Facebook business page, you could pin it. But it makes it really easy for people to be able to know, oh, this is a person. Oh my gosh, I really like them. Oh my gosh, I have this in common with them. So that content is an easy piece of content to knock out.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, that reminds me, I probably need to do an introduction post for myself, because on my LinkedIn, it's doubled like in the last several months. It's just,
Yeah,
I've been really intentional about LinkedIn, and it's
incredible.
grown like crazy. So yeah, I probably need to do an introduction video.
Yeah.
So good reminder.
Well, and you can honestly, if you are more active on social media, you can do a refresh every 3 to 4 months, and do, a new picture, a new video, new piece of content, and then reintroduce yourself. And anything that you've learned over that amount of time, you can continue to add to it and tack it on. Because again, AI is trolling our social feeds these days. Another advice is, if you say on one piece of content that you have been in business for 20 plus years, another one you've been in business for 17 years, that consistency is really important. So if you are auditing yourself, if you're new to social media, if you're new to all of this game, do a little audit and check all of your profiles to make sure it's pretty much the same across the board, and it's sharing that same message over and over and over again. Experience is really important these days.
Yeah, I know that's something I've been struggling with myself, because, when it comes to marketing, I've been in marketing for over 20 years,
Yeah.
PR over 17 years. When it comes to the publishing side of things, like actually being in the publishing side, not as an author, but in the publishing side, it's 8 years. And so it's like, okay, well, I got to find a way to say it better so that it doesn't look,
Yeah.
scattered, but it's just the various assets or facets of my capabilities. But, now, Morgan, what are your thoughts on niches?
Love them. Love them. You will never be everybody's flavor. And it's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, that you will never be everybody's flavor. And if you cast your net way too wide, you're going to miss out on a lot of people. Back to my messaging of, you confuse, you lose. You should be able to say exactly who you're helping, what you do within a sentence. And it should be pretty simple and easy. So if you do start saying, oh, I help, and you list out 10 things, my brain immediately tuned out probably after number 3. I'm nice, so maybe number 5. So if you can be intentional with your niches, I think that is key, especially in today's market and day and age, where everyone's got the power of a cell phone. Everyone, I feel like these days, is a business owner, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, which I love it. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, business owners. So I absolutely love that. But you should be able to pinpoint exactly who you help and what you do.
100%. And that's a great piece of advice for networking as well. Like, when you're asking for those referrals, don't just say, if you're looking for anyone who wants to buy a house, nobody's going to come to mind. But if
Nope.
you say, if you're looking, or I'm looking for the single 30-year-old who's looking to buy their first home, blah, blah, add
Yeah.
some specificity there. And somebody is going to have somebody that goes, oh, yeah, actually, I have somebody in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a piece of networking advice. So I used to travel around and talk to colleges and networking groups about the power of networking. So that one sentence, get it down. Listen to whatever book you want to listen to, but get your one sentence down, and you should be able to say it over and over again. So within one sentence, you should be able to tell me exactly who I can introduce you with who can I connect you with? Somebody will always come to mind. I mean, just the example that you were giving, perfect. You can another example that I've heard is we work with newly married couples, getting them into their first home before they start building a family. Oh my gosh, I just attended 3 weddings this past year. Like, I've got so many people to introduce you to. So that is really important. The other piece of networking advice is find a buddy if you can that can introduce you to people. So for example, whenever I was going to attend a networking events, I would show up with a buddy. Her name is Sarah, and Sarah could say mine one line, and it almost came as a referral. So we would come into an event, say, "Oh, nice to meet you. Have you met Morgan? This is what Morgan does." And she could sum up my one sentence. So if you're new to networking, growing a business, say your one line, and then to find a buddy who could also say it.
I love that. I needed a networking buddy when I was first starting out because I am an introvert, and networking for me was really hard getting out there. I can go speak in front of 500 people, no problem.
Yeah.
But you put me in a room of like 30 people and I'm like, wait, I have to talk to these people.
Yeah.
It was really scary for me. I mean, now it doesn't bother me, but when I first started, that's a good idea to have a networking buddy. So,
Networking buddy.
well, Morgan, what is is there anything that like you're like, I really wanted to make sure I shared with the listeners this piece of advice or this point?
The industry and the market today is changing, and it is so important for you to have an online presence. Whatever it is, make sure it is very clear what you are sharing online. If you confuse, you lose. So be very intentional on what you're sharing online, but get out there. In the next 2 to 5 years, if you do not have a social media presence, people are going to get so far ahead of you. So today is the day you jump in, you record that video, you make that post. Don't watch the video back, but just hit post and get out there.
I love that. I love that. I'll finish with this one point, but you said record a video. That's a great way to get a whole lot of content. Go record a video 5 minutes long of you talking about something, take a bunch of snippets from that. And there you go. You've got a whole bunch of social media and you can spin that into a lot of pieces of content as well. So I love that you added that.
Yeah.
And where can people reach you, Morgan?
LinkedIn. So if you just search Morgan Heinrich on LinkedIn and add me on LinkedIn, I'm more than happy to connect. I love building my community, my network. You never know who someone else knows. So please don't be a stranger. It's been one of the biggest blessings in my career is building my network on LinkedIn and on social media. I'm on every single social media platform, but LinkedIn these days is where you can truly find me. But please don't be a stranger. If there's anyone I can introduce you to, please reach out.
I love it. Yeah, I love LinkedIn too. It's definitely great, especially since I think the stats are maybe only like 6% of people post on LinkedIn. So
yeah,
go ahead and post. I'm finding actually though, commenting on other people's posts. So like who shares an audience that I want to tap into?
Yeah.
Find them and go comment on their, not with a like, so cool. No, like with an actual comment.
With a genuine comment, 4 words or more, friends, the 5 fire emojis doesn't work. Put a true comment on there, and you can actually start a pretty good conversation, a good friendship from that.
You can 100%. Well, thank you so much, Morgan. This has been the time up by fast. So I'm really thankful that we hopped on, and I know there are tons of nuggets in here, especially that last little bit that you added. That's going to be a snippet for sure. So thank you so much, Morgan.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.